Hello everybody, this is Skaaro the Red again, and welcome back to Sunday Night Storytime with Skaaro. Tonight we're bringing you Chapter 4 of the ridiculous Ballad of Skaaro the Red. And during this we're going to be doing some missions here in Port Nyanzaru as a little bit of a change of pace. So if you're enjoying my stories, please like, subscribe, thumbs up, vote, comment, all sorts of things. Let me know that you're enjoying this somehow, and so that I know I should keep on going with it. And so without any further ado, let's begin Chapter 4. As the Golden Falcon sailed across the bright blue waves of the Sea of Swords, Skaaro stood atop the quarterdeck along with Quartermaster Orvallo. The bright midday sun and clear blue skies reflecting in his giant monocle. Holding a small map which depicted a portion of Faerun, Orvallo pointed to a spot in the southern area of the Sea of Swords between the Moonshae Isles and Baldur's Gate. "We're about to be passing through this region," he said. "We need to get through here as fast as we can. This area is often heavily patrolled by the regional authorities, from both Neverwinter through Mintarn and Moonshae, as well as local raiders and other pirates. Once we're clear of these territories, we need to make a quick stop in the Nelanter Isles, then south through Asavir's Channel, past Lantern and into the Shining Sea. We'll be intercepting merchant ships traveling out of Port Nyanzaru. With any luck, maybe we'll even meet up with those fellas that threw you into the sea." Chuckling, Orvallo rolled up the map and tucked it into his oversized coat. "Aye," said Skaaro. "They caught me sleeping and should have killed me when they had a chance. But I'll make 'em regret the day they tossed this dwarf into the sea." Just then, a large green and purple bird landed on the railing a short distance from Skaaro and Orvallo. "Would you look at that?" said Orvallo. "You don't see parrots too often this far north. And when you look at the plumage on it." Then suddenly, with a loud thunk, an arrow hissed by and pinned the parrot to a post. "What in Moradin's beard?" Skaaro exclaimed with shock. Then the tall thin elf calmly approached the twitching parrot, and grasping his arrow, he plucked it from the post. Huijin had long blonde hair, which fell loosely around his pointed ears. Wearing only trousers and boots, his upper body was covered in strange black and gold tattoos of swirling pointed shapes. While many of the crew of the Golden Falcon had tattoos, Huijin was somehow different. The gold in his tattoos seemed to twinkle and shimmer in the bright sun, while the black looked as though it was filled with the twinkling night sky stars. "What's the meaning of this?" Skaaro demanded. With a grin, Huijin scoffed at Skaaro, then gently nudged Orvallo and pointed at the starboard horizon. Although barely visible, two ships with full sails loomed in the distance. At that moment, the crewman in the crow's nest hollered, "Inbound ship starboard!" Orvallo quickly retrieved a spyglass from his coat and extended its several telescopic components. The resulting spyglass was nearly as long as both his arms were across. Resting one end of the spyglass on the railing, Orvallo peered through across the sea at the incoming ships. "It's certainly not the white sails of Neverwinter's mercenaries," said Orvallo. "Other pirates?" Skaaro asked. "Aye, seems to be. And by the looks of it, they be sailing some fast ships too," Orvallo said. "It's too late now to outrun them, but they'll certainly come to regret approaching the Golden Falcon." Orvallo then turned back to Skaaro and told him, "Go over and ring that there bell to alert the crew while I go tell the captain." Orvallo descended to the main deck and headed towards the captain's cabin, while Skaaro went to a large nearby bell with a crank on one side. Turning the crank to and fro, Skaaro rang the bell loudly, and the crew immediately sprang to life. The Golden Falcon was abuzz with crewmen running about, shouting, pulling riggings, hoisting and turning sails. A large black standard bearing a gold falcon was hoisted up to the tallest mast, which fluttered in the wind as a dire warning to their pursuers. A warning they did not heed. As the crew scurried about the ship preparing for battle, Captain Windblade emerged from her cabin. "Ready the cannons," she ordered, as she marched confidently across the deck and up to the helm, where she took hold of the ship's wheel and brought the Golden Falcon about, facing directly towards the incoming ships. As they began their approach, crewmen readied a pair of massive cannons mounted at the front of the ship. As Skaaro watched, most of the crew worked to ready the ship's cannons. He noticed Toothless Pete was nearby on the main deck, so Skaaro ran over to him and asked, "What should I be doing here?" "Just be ready to fight," Pete answered. "But if you want to lend a hand, you can head on down to the main hold and help the crew bring some planks up so we can use them to board their ships." Skaaro nodded and headed towards the main hold. In the hold, several crewmen were already unloading planks and passing them along to be carried up to the deck. Skaaro joined in and even carried several of the thick, heavy planks at a time. By the time they finished bringing up the planks, the enemy ships were just coming within cannon range. Captain Windblade confidently piloted the Golden Falcon directly towards the incoming ships. Then, as they came near, she turned the Golden Falcon slightly to port. "Wait for it. Not yet. Line them up and fire!" shouted Captain Windblade. Several of the ship's cannons fired with a loud boom, boom, boom. All 3 shots hit one of the ships directly in the hull. The smaller, lighter ship was immediately disabled. Captain Windblade angled the ship further to port and drifted around to the far side of the disabled ship, using it to shield the Golden Falcon from the other ship's cannon fire. The disabled ship, however, fired several shots at the Golden Falcon, directly impacting its hull. "Skaaro!" Toothless Pete shouted. "Come on with me! We gotta get below and do some damage control." Skaaro ran towards Pete. "I'm coming," he responded, and as they ran across the deck, the Golden Falcon returned fire at the disabled ship. Boom, 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 boom. The 6 starboard cannons unloaded into the ship. Huijin led a team of archers across the deck, and followed them was a pair of crewmen carrying a large bowl of fire. The archers used the fire to set their arrows ablaze and loosed volleys of arrows upon the disabled ship, causing several parts of the ship to catch fire. Then, just as the other ship came about and rounded the disabled ship, Captain Windblade turned the Golden Falcon hard to port. Boom, boom, boom. Again, the cannons unleashed hell upon them, inflicting severe damage to the other ship's hull. "Hurry," Toothless Pete shouted. "We need to seal these bulkheads before we take on too much water." Skaaro rushed below deck with Toothless Pete. "Grab those wood boards over there and get on down into the water there," said Toothless Pete. Skaaro followed the instructions and started hammering boards up into the bulkheads, little by little slowing the flow of water. "That's good," Toothless Pete shouted. "Let's get back up to the main deck and finish this." With a hearty "Aye, aye," Skaaro followed Toothless Pete back up to the main deck. When they emerged on the main deck, there was already a furious battle underway. Both enemy ships were disabled and ablaze. As Huijin and a team of archers continued to rain burning arrows down upon both disabled ships, Captain Windblade spun the ship's wheel and swung the Golden Falcon about, positioning it closely alongside the first disabled ship. The crew of the Golden Falcon were already busy setting planks bridging the gap across to the enemy ship. With their swords held high, they charged across the planks onto the enemy ships, hacking and slashing at the raiders. Even Hammerfist joined in the battle, wildly smashing the enemy crew with his hammer. "Charge!" Toothless Pete shouted. With a mighty roar, Skaaro unsheathed his hammer from his back and ran across one of the planks, boarding the enemy ship. As Skaaro charged into the fray, he swung his warhammer into the enemy raiders, smashing several of them and knocking them to the ground. Skaaro followed up the attack with an overhand swing. His warhammer descended upon the head of a prone enemy, crushing his skull completely. Then Skaaro felt a sharp pain in his left arm. He quickly turned to see one of the other enemy raiders had sunk a dagger into his arm, and in the other hand his sword was raised, but before he could bring it down, an enraged Skaaro grabbed him by the neck, and kicking his feet out from under him, Skaaro dragged him down and smashed him to the deck repeatedly until the entire one side of the raider's head was flattened and the wood of the deck was cracked and splintered. Another raider attempted to attack Skaaro from behind. With his sword drawn back and ready to stab, the raider quickly approached the distracted Skaaro, but just before he was within stabbing distance, Toothless Pete appeared as if from nowhere, and in the blink of an eye, the raider stopped dead in his tracks. A thin red line began to appear across his neck. Blood slowly began to ooze from the line as it traced completely around his neck. Then the raider's head fell completely from his body to the deck, and soon thereafter the headless body slumped to the deck with a thud. Behind the beheaded raider stood Toothless Pete, his crescent blades dripping with blood, held up vertically in front of himself. With a wink and a toothless grin, Pete leapt and rolled towards another enemy raider, then vanished completely. Moments later, he reappeared behind him and, furiously slashing with his crescent blades, completely eviscerated the enemy raider, spilling his entrails upon the deck. It wasn't long until all of the enemy raiders on that ship lay dead at their feet. Meanwhile, the other ship was attempting to retreat, but as they tried to open their sails, Huijin and the other archers launched several more burning arrows into the sail, setting it ablaze. Then, once more the cannons fired several more shots. Boom, boom, boom! Cannonballs smashed into the enemy raiders' ship's stern, inflicting massive damage and crippling the ship. "Hurry back!" Toothless Pete shouted as the crew raced back across the planks to the Golden Falcon. Once aboard, they pulled the planks back across, and Captain Windblade began shouting orders. Piloting the Golden Falcon, they headed towards the remaining enemy ship, and as they approached the ship, Huijin and his team of archers continued to launch blazing arrows at the already burning ship. As they approached the ship, its crew began jumping overboard into the water. "Everybody, brace! Hard to port!" shouted Captain Windblade, and she abruptly steered the Golden Falcon away from the burning enemy ship. Before Skaaro could even ask what was going on, the enemy ship exploded with a loud kaboom. The Golden Falcon rocked from the explosion. Skaaro could hear the ship's hull loudly cracking and the bulkheads creaking. Then, the stern of the ship began slowly sinking into the water. And that is the end of Chapter 4 of the ridiculous Ballad of Skaaro the Red. Kind of a cliffhanger there. We left with the Golden Falcon sinking into the sea after a fierce battle with some pirate raiders who came up upon them unexpectedly. So I encourage everyone to like, share, upvote, whatever, and comment. Let me know any suggestions, any ideas, that kind of thing. Any kind of feedback at all. Just let me know that you're enjoying this, if nothing else. And next week we'll pick up where we left off with Chapter 5 and find out what happens to our heroes. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next week.